It's a gospel song. Sing it here.
Cincinnati. We are creative, spiritual community with a vision of humanity awakens to its wholeness and a mission to embody and teach spiritual principles. We know that within us there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and it is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, joy, and power of life. This life is health, it is abundance, it is love. There is one life, and it is life of God. And this is my life now, and so it is.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I know automatically you're thinking, oh, Reverend Dee's getting this summer casual thing. Going over a little bored with the Starbucks coffee, and you would be wrong. That's not the point. You might think I might be doing a contradiction thing because our theme is living the relaxed life, and nothing says relaxed life like a Lindsay bowl with an added shot. Or you might be thinking, oh, that installation thing's coming up. Good opportunity to buy gift cards. It'd be nice to know where Reverend Dee shops, but you know what? That did not occur to me. What did occur to me as I was drinking my coffee is a quote by Oprah Winfrey, which is on my cup, which says, "Live from the heart of yourself. Seek to be whole, not perfect." Now it's starting to make sense. Because today we're talking about societal impressions. And what does that mean? Well, first it kind of begs the question, are we talking about my impression on society? Or society's impression of me? Now we've got some questions going. We heard from Emerson today. I'm sorry, Julie, I know that was a bit of a struggle. And anybody that's read Emerson knows that Emerson is a bit of a struggle to go through. And it's very hard to edit Emerson down. And the reason we have Emerson as the reading today is that, we teach religious science here. And a lot of religious science comes from the philosophies and the teachings of Emerson and Troward and the Bible. Those are the big three in the teachings that Ernest Holmes gave us. And so Emerson has a bit to say about society. He is not a fan of society. And that's not to say that he is not a fan of community. And there's a big difference between society and community. We call ourselves a spiritual community, a creative spiritual community. That's what we see as our purpose. And yet we live in a society. And the difference being that the society involves all of the conditions of all of the people in that society. And community focuses in a different way. Emerson doesn't like society because society, he thinks, is something that kills the individual. And he makes the case for that. His statement that we've all heard, envy is ignorance, and imitation is suicide. That comes from his feelings about society and what they do to us as individuals. Because society is all about protecting itself. It's self-serving. Everything about it is about the lowest common denominator. It's about getting along. It's about consistency. It's about conformity. And what do we think about consistency and conformity? What do we think about that thousand-tongue voice that Julie talked about from Emerson's quote? What we're talking about, what Emerson calls the thousand-cloven tongue deigned to repeat itself. He's talking about God doesn't make copies. Troward says it this way. He talks about the personal factor, about this conscious evolution of mankind, that we are consciously evolving, and that part of that evolution is what he calls the personal factor. This necessitates each individual taking its place in the creative process. Now that means each one of us has, if not a responsibility, an opportunity. And this is not about being in society where it's one for all and all for one. It's about you being that expression of God that reveals the truth. What we're talking about is the application of a principle. And there's three principles that we're talking about today. We're talking about unity. We believe in the unity of all life. And that the innermost God and the outermost God is the same God. That's the unity. But we also talk about the personalness. We believe that God is personal to all who feel that indwelling presence. So the universal. God is all there is. The innermost God and the outermost God is one God. And we have the personalist, where God is personal to everybody that feels that indwelling presence. That's very important to us, isn't it? That notion that God is personal. And then we talk about revelation. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of mankind. And that any person may become a revealer of truth. Any person can become a revealer of truth because of their nature. Because that truth is already born within. Because there is one mind. And we are all individualizations of it. Individualization and universality. Oh, there's a couple of big, long words. And if you think Emerson is hard to understand on this point, let let me just read you one brief little paragraph from one of Holmes's lectures. He says, this brings us to the proposition that a perception, a recognition, or a realization of the undivided universality necessitates the recognition of the manifestation of the undivided itself.
Read that again.
This brings us to the proposition that a perception, a recognition, or a realization of the undivided universality necessitates the recognition of the manifestation of the undivided universality in infinite variations of individualizations of itself. And then he says, this is something we cannot avoid. Well, every once in a while I beg to differ with Ernest. But it is a concept, so it's something that he's saying is simple but not easy. And we do that all the time, right? These things are simple, but they're not easy. Now, Terry Cole Whitaker, anybody Terry Cole Whitaker fans? All right, there's a couple out there. She puts it this way: each of us is an individualized expression of God, and God doesn't make junk. Saying the same kind of thing, maybe a little easier to comprehend. Or at least a place to start the conversation that's a little easier. Because it's hard to bring up universality and individualization at a dinner party. It's a little easier to bring up junk. What we're saying in all of these things is basically what it says to me, the God is, I am, you are. This idea of what God is, what I am, and what you are, and how that all works together. That's that personal factor that Trower talks about, this necessity of the unified spirit itself to individualize itself as a matter of expression. It's interesting, we talk about our purpose all the time. And Trower talks that God has no purpose. What? God has to have a purpose. No, God does not have to have a purpose. God is. That's it. God is. There is no purpose there. And so the God in me, the God in you, has no purpose except to express. That's what God does. That's what we do. We express. We can't help it. That's all we can do. If we are, we're expressing, right? This whole idea of purpose comes down to volition and choice. We get to choose what our purpose is. And this is where this idea of envy is ignorance comes into play. And imitation is suicide. Because when we talk about our purpose, we go back to Emerson talking about, no kernel of corn can come to me except that I grow in the plot that I am given to till. God doesn't make copies. If I envy something that somebody has or that somebody can do, I'm wanting what another person has. And that is not mine to have. We do this all the time in treatment. We see something that we want, and we treat for it, right? We believe that we can have anything that we can believe is a possibility to have, correct? That's the whole idea. That's the idea that the creation comes from within. It's our thought, it's our decision, it's our intent. And if I intend to have glorious house, and I treat to have glorious house, this is wrong treatment, is it not? Because it is not mine to have. It is glorious house. Now there may be something about glorious house that I like, that I respect, that I want, and it's okay to treat for that, to plan for that, to intend for that, to work towards that, to express myself through that, but I cannot have employee's house.
It's for sale.
Thank you, Diana. That comes from the everything has its price lecture. For that matter, who knows somebody is dating the perfect man or woman?
My husband's the perfect man.
Your husband's the perfect
Yeah,
man?
you're getting at another point though, so I already have him, so I don't have to model.
Well, that is the point. You already have him. I can think you are so lucky to have that perfect man, and I want that perfect man. And by God, I'm going to pray for that perfect man to show up in my life, which would be unfortunate for you. Not to mention unfortunate for him. But I digress. Of course, it's normal for people to want. And in society, getting back to society and our impressions of it and its impressions on us, Holmes does talk about our wants. This is what Cherry Cole Whitaker in her book, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. This is a point throughout the book, that we tend to give other people that power and authority over us based on not even what they think, but what we think they think. You know? How crazy is that?
Preach, Reverend.
What we're talking about is exactly that, is what is coming from inside. You know, it doesn't speak through us if everyone is expecting us to say it, right? If everybody wants us to say it, it doesn't mean a whole lot. If we were in one of those other churches down the street where everybody is expected to say preach, everybody is expected to say amen, everybody is expected to say hallelujah, it would not mean as much. In society, whatever is expected of us doesn't mean too much because we're conforming. Another problem we get into is the past, because we hate discrepancies. If I said something yesterday, how can I say something different today? Well, what you believe, what we believe about what we believe, is that whatever we believed yesterday was fine for yesterday, and today is anew. Today we either believe it again, or we believe something different. And so we are not tied to past beliefs. We are not tied to what we said yesterday. We are not tied to the way we thought yesterday. We're not tied to what the people that we respected yesterday. It's today. It's the now. Everything in the universe moves from the now. The truth never changes. So we don't have to worry about that part. We don't have to worry about misconstruing the truth. We might do it yesterday, we might do it today, we might do it tomorrow. The truth is not hurt by that. What we're looking for is to expand the good and be more. What is our vision as a movement? Anybody remember? A world that works for everyone. Oh, that's a happy one, isn't it? A world that works for everyone. Could anyone disagree with that? Would anyone not want a world that works for everyone? Would anyone want to live in a world that doesn't work for them or for everyone else? Of course, it's a noble vision. Emerson has some things to say about noble visions, too. Not big a fan of those, either. He says for it to be noble, for it to be good, for it to express the truth, it needs to have an edge. A world that works for everyone doesn't have much of an edge. You know, it's just nice. It's a hallmark statement. A world that works for everyone. Because the edge is implied, but you have to look for it. Because when we say a world that works for everyone, what we're saying is, it's not this world. It's not this one. This one is not working. We need to change. We need to evolve. We need to shift. We need a revolution. Ooh, to the R word. But that's what we're implying. We're implying the change, and what society hates is change. What society wants is the same thing that it was yesterday. What society wants is to perpetuate itself. And that's why we have all kinds of rules and laws and understandings and cultural awarenesses about who we are and what it's proper to do and proper not to do. Because that's how society perpetuates itself. And no one is rewarded for rocking the boat. You know, the person that stands up above the crowd is the one that gets hit with the rock. The chicken with its neck cut, I don't know. There's something about a chicken that escapes me now. But what we're talking about is that the truth is never re-revealed. The truth is the truth no matter what. It's always been the truth back as far as we can care to go. To the first person that said this is the truth. They were wrong or they were right. It doesn't matter. The truth is still the same. What we need to do, though, is to re-say it and re-say it and re-say it because it is obviously not revealed to us fully. I obviously am not living the truth every moment of every day. Because I'm pretty sure if I knew the truth and lived the truth moment by moment every day, I would not be here. I would have expanded into some other form, some other plane of existence, because there would be no need to express in the physical form anymore. So every person can be a revealer of the truth based on their own nature, but it doesn't happen if we're just thinking it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It's easy because we know what that opinion is. Everybody's happy when we express it. It becomes easy for us. It is also easy in solitude to live after our own opinion. If it's just me, I can think what I want. It has no consequence. But the great person is the one who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. So now we're talking about taking the principle and putting it into practice. Terry Cole Whitaker likes to say, you know what, we're born alone, we die alone. And in between there's this crowd of people around us all the time. And that's the truth. We are born alone and we die alone. And then there's the truth behind that we are never alone. That is not possible. And so how do we reconcile this? We reconcile it by going into the solitude, knowing what we know, and then going into the crowd and keeping what it is that we know as our personal opinion and expressing it in the crowd. Easier said than done here. Ernest Holmes has a practical application. And what we're talking here, last week we talked about putting away childish things and what that meant. And that it didn't mean putting away the toys, the fun part. It meant putting away the childish thinking, the childish reasoning. That's what we're doing here. We're changing the thoughts, changing the reasoning, changing what it is we're doing. And that's putting practice on the principle. And Ernest Holmes says this, of course it is normal to want people to like us. Anybody want people to hate you? No, it is normal, a societal norm even, for us to want people to like us. But people criticize us. Probably back to that envy thing, that imitation thing. Anybody ever buy a car and get excited about it and go say, someone, I just bought a new car, and I said, what kind did you get? Honda Civic, and they're like, oh, that's so small. I said, no, I didn't buy a Honda Civic. I bought a Cadillac Escalade. I'm like, oh, those are so big. You know, where is that coming from? What color is it? Black? Do you like black? No, it came in 8 other colors that I chose the one I liked the least. And how do we attract that to us? We attract it. How do we recognize it? Because we do it ourselves, don't we? Somehow we want to take away something that belongs to somebody else. I don't know where we learned that. I'm guessing it was way back when. So Ernest says it's natural for us to want people to like us. And then they criticize us and we get hurt. Somebody was talking today, this morning even, about somebody being hurt by something, which I was responsible for.
Yeah.
That's not the funniest part. In fact, that's not funny at all. But if Spirit moves you, this is the place to laugh out loud. Because it doesn't matter what we do that comes from inside. If somebody laughs at something that's not funny, it is funny to them, and that's my place to know that for them and to say yes to it. And more often than not, it's somebody not laughing at something I thought was funny, and that's okay too. So we're at this place where people criticize us. They say things to bring us down. Nobody is jumping for joy at our success, at my success, at your success, because we all want to bring people down to that same level. Again, back to society. Impression on you instead of your impression on society. And Holmes says the way to deal with that is to think, you know what? They would like me if they knew me better. Have you ever said that to yourself? I've been misunderstood. They thought I was being mean, but I wasn't. That wasn't my intent. If they knew me better, they'd know that I was irreverent. I got that one this week too. You know, for a reverend, you're kind of irreverent. Amen to that. If you knew me better, you wouldn't think bad things about me. You wouldn't think that I would deliberately hurt you. You would not think that I would deliberately criticize you. You would know that I can only love you. Because that's all I see in you is the love that you are. And it comes out as sarcasm, and it comes out as humor, and it comes out as a dozen different things. Sometimes it comes out as being thoughtless or mean. If you knew me better, you would like me. And that is the absolute truth, because if I knew you better, I would like you. Because if we know each other as God knows us, perfect, whole, and complete, not judging by appearances, but judging by cause of what we are as individualized expressions of the divine, if we could see that in each other, every moment of every day, that revolution would happen, that shift would happen, that heaven on earth would be established, and it would be a world that works for everyone. There's an affirmation in the 5 gifts for an abundant life that we're using. I surrender to the power and presence of God within me. That's a powerful affirmation. And it says so much about what God is and who I am. It speaks so much as to turning from living from the outside in to living from within out. And there's that little ending. You know, it'd be enough to say, I surrender to the power and presence of God. But they added within me. Because it's within me. I can't surrender to the God within you. You can't surrender to the God within me. We can only surrender to the God within each one of us. And that's what the blessing is of being an individualized expression of the divine. I surrender to God within me. I surrender to the power and the presence of God within me. I surrender to the power and presence of God within me. God is life and love and peace and joy. And God expresses itself in form as its creation. It is a creation that is intelligent. It is a creation of life. It is a creation of love. It supports and it is supported. And I am part of that expression, an individualized expression myself of the one mind, the one life, the one love. God is and I am. And every person in this room is an individualized expression of that same Spirit. It's what unifies us in mind and in heart. Unifies us in the one life that is God. It's what makes us brothers and sisters. It's what allows me to celebrate who you are, what you do. It's what allows me to drop the envy, drop the imitation, and simply celebrate that which is individualized in each person. As I accept it for each, I accept it for myself. I accept it with gratitude. I accept it with assurance. I accept it with affirmation as I surrender to the power and presence